What's up YouTube, it's your boy Nash here, welcome back to the channel, and welcome to another episode of Yu-Gi-Oh's Biggest Issue. This episode is going to be a little bit different from all the rest because over the next few, I would say probably the next couple months at best, I'm going to be talking about the archetypes from the Hidden Arsenal series. If you guys remember, this past Tuesday, I had mentioned that we were going to be getting Hidden Arsenal Chapter 1, I believe in November, if I remember correctly. So I thought it would be cool to give you guys a bit of a background as to what each of these archetypes were like as far as the meta went, and what cards that were in that archetype. So obviously with episode 1, we're starting with Ice Barrier, which obviously we all know it's an archetype consisting of nothing but water monsters, for the most part anyway, and it resembled famous concepts, warriors, figures, and mythological beings of different Asian cultures, if you will, which honestly is incredible. It's an incredible archetype. I've actually had my eyes on Ice Barrier for a while. I've been wanting to build them for quite a while, and their team symbol resembled a hexagonal snowflake, which I believe was known as the Magic Triangle of the Ice Barrier, which is a normal spell card, actually, which the spell reads, reveal 3 Ice Barrier monsters with different names in your hand, and then target one of the card your opponent controls, destroy that target, and if you do, special summon an Ice Barrier monster from your hand. So with that card, it was basically a 1-for-1 of sorts, but with the cost of revealing 3 Ice Barrier monsters from your hand, which honestly was really good. The main focus of the archetype was being able to maintain the hand advantage, and what that means is being able to have more cards in your hand than your opponent for the most part. And the ace monsters of the archetype were 3 dragons: Brionac, Gungnir, and Trishula. I don't know exactly what their they represent. Let me take a look. Hang on. Oh, never mind. I thought it was, oh wait, here we are. Maybe this might help me out. Hang on, guys. Oh, never mind. Never mind. Thought it was, that would give me a background story on Brionac. But, what's cool about the Ice Barrier archetype was that the main goal was to actually bring out Brionac, Gungnir, and Trishula, which each card had their own interesting effect, if you will. And obviously, if you guys were not familiar with the Ice Barrier archetype, the generals of the Ice Barrier were Ryo, Gantala, and Grunnerd, which were the 3 generals of the Ice Barrier. Each of them had their own effect, and Ryo has the effect of when your opponent's monster effect is activated on the field resolves, they must discard a card, or the effect is negated. Their choice. So they have a choice of either discarding a card to keep the effect, or the effect is negated. So it has a bit of an interesting effect. It's a pretty cool effect, being able to stop your opponent from trying to pop off, if you will, but it was a weird one. It was a weird one. Gantala had the effect of once per turn during your end phase, you can target one Ice Barrier monster in your grave, except General Gantala of the Ice Barrier and Special Summon. So it was basically this effect, a Monster Reborn. Now, Grunnard, I believe, had a much more different effect, if I remember right. During your main phase, you can special summon an Ice Barrier monster. In your addition to your normal summoner set, you can only gain this effect once per turn. So it had an effect similar to Blackwing Nathun the Starlight, where you're able to perform two normal summons in one. This archetype was kind of cool because when the Ice Barrier archetype was first introduced, they were packed with only a single effect that required another Ice Barrier monster on the field. But not always, but not all of them, of course. And in order to activate their effects, or to have their effects be applied continuously, which were oriented to give you a major advantage on board, Again, you would need to have multiple Ice Barrier monsters on the field, and a lot of these cards were absolutely incredible. Being able to have have multiple Ice Barrier monsters on the field to trigger their effects, like Chiromancer of the Ice Barrier, which actually the effect reads, while you control another Ice Barrier monster, level 4 or higher monsters cannot declare an attack. So it was basically that with that effect, it was more so like Gravity Bind. I think it was. I think it was. Which was really cool. Which is a really cool effect. Now, Defender of the Ice Barrier had the effect where you could stop your opponent's monsters from attacking if they have if their attack is higher than Defender's defense. And then of course you had Dai Sojo of the Ice Barrier, which protected all of your Ice Barrier monsters from being destroyed by spells and traps. That right there is just broken. Being able to have your Ice Barrier monsters protect each other from battle, card effects, and monster effects and whatnot. It came a long way. It came a long way to to being a really broken deck. In fact, I think when the Ice Barrier archetype came out in one of the Hidden Arsenal, the first one in Hidden Arsenal, it was interesting because the archetype didn't really blow up as like much as we all thought. But I think once we got into sets like the Shining Darkness, Hidden Arsenal 2, Starstrike Blast, and even also Hidden Arsenal 4, Trishula's Triumph, the deck started to really come up. And then once we got into the Freezing Chain Structure, which came out last year or something like that, the deck came out to be a really good set, really good deck. But again, the deck was mainly this archetype was mainly focusing on protecting one another from card effects and whatnot, and being able to keep those protection cards when you have cards like Trishula and Gungnir and also Brio on the field as well. The flip side of it is that a lot of these different Ice Barrier cards were not that useful on their own. You would need to have a good amount of monsters on the field, such as Magic Triangle of the Ice Barrier, which I had talked about earlier on in this video, and it would have to be assisted by the effects of the other two generals, which were Gunnard and also Guntala as well. And Guntala, being a 2700 attack beat stick, that came a long way. So it was a pretty cool concept. As far as like what cards, as far as like draw cards that were useful in this, there really weren't a whole lot. Given the fact that this deck didn't have a lot of draw power, you would need cards like Shard of Greed, Max C, and even also Moray of Greed, which really came in handy if you had a bunch of bricks in your hand and you wanted to unclog your hand. You could just play Moray of Greed, take 3 water monsters from your hand, put them back into the deck, shuffle it, and then be able to draw out 2 more cards. It really helped out. It really helped the deck out. Shard of Greed was also another good one. Being able to just play a card like Swords of Revealing Light, and then playing Shard of Greed in the same turn, trying to stall for time, and then once Shard of Greed had the 2 counters, you send it to the grave, you draw 2 cards, and you'll be able to combo off like really quickly. Surface was also another really good one because Surface and Salvage were really good because Salvage, I believe you were able to recycle your water monsters. I believe. Yes, you were actually able to recycle 2 water monsters with 1500 or less from your grave back into your hand. So yeah, so again it says target 2 water monsters with 1500 or less attacking your grave. Add those targets to your hand. This was released in Invasion of Chaos. Surface was I think what was it? Maybe what? I think yeah, I thought so. Generation Force was the release of this card, which says target a level 3 or lower fish, sea serpent, or aqua monster in your grave, special summon it in defense. So both these cards were really good. Being able to recycle monsters from your grave to your hand and be able to reborn a water monster from your grave, absolutely incredible. But over time, the deck just kind of dying down with the fact that Trishula got banned. I believe Brionac also got banned. Gungnir didn't. I don't remember if Gungnir got banned, but luckily with the new freezing chain structure deck, we were able to get cards that were actually really good, like really good, and one of them. Was obviously Revealer of the Ice Barrier, which had a couple of effects. While you control another Ice Barrier monster, your opponent cannot tribute summon. That effect right there, Mask of Restrict. Your opponent cannot summon and cannot tribute summon anything. But again, the cost is that you have to have another Ice Barrier monster on the field. Case in point with some of the older ones that I talked about in today's episode. You can only use each of the following effects of Revealer of the Ice Barrier once per turn. You can discard 1 card, special summon 1 Ice Barrier tuner from your deck. Also, you cannot special summon monsters for the rest of the turn except water monsters. So being able to pitch a card for cost, pitch one of your brick cards, summon out a tuner from the deck, and being able to go into something like Gungnir or Brionac or Trishula. That reserve is just broken on its own right there. If you would discard or send a card or cards from the hand to the grave to activate an Ice Barrier monster's effect. You can banish this card from your grave instead of one of those targets. So, I'm not so... So, with this, I'm not... You really would not want to activate those two effects in the same turn, because if you do, it would end up breaking the site, breaking the card, it would end up breaking up your effect of summoning the tuner monster from your deck. But we also did get a new tuner called Hexa Spirit of the Ice Barrier, which I believe that was one of the newer ones that. Yes, yeah, this was one of the newer ones. While you control another Ice Barrier monsters your opponent controls lose 500 attack and defense. During your main phase, you can send a level 3 or lower Ice Barrier monster from your deck to the grave. If you do, this card's level becomes the same as that monster's until the end of the turn. You can only use this effect once per turn. So with this effect, it was basically Spore. Being able to just, pitch cards and make Spore that, give Spore levels equal to the monster you banish. That's what Hexa was about. Pitching a monster from your hand and giving Hexa the same level as that monster. Again, going into Gungnir, Trishula, Brionac, and of course any of the other synchros that were in the Ice Barrier strategy would come a very, very long way. As far as and also Doloran as well. I almost forgot. Doloran was another one that would come out. To give you guys an idea of how broken the deck was. I'm actually going to be doing a quick profile as to what cards would be recommended to build a Ice Barrier deck. So as far as the monsters go, you have Daisoja of the Ice Barrier, and you have 2 copies of Gantala, 1 Grunnerd, 1 Ryo, 1 Geomancer of the Ice Barrier, Medium of the Ice Barrier, Numbing Grub in the Ice Barrier, Pilgrim of the Ice Barrier, Samurai of the Ice Barrier, and 3 Strategists of the Ice Barrier. And then the tuners, you had 2 Chiromancer and 3 Defender of the Ice Barrier, and then 1 Reese the Ice Mistress. For the spells, you have the 1 Book of Moon, 1 Dark Hole, the 1 Foolish Burial, double copies of Magic Triangle of the Ice Barrier, 3 Medallion of the Ice Barrier, 1 Mirror of the Ice Barrier, Monster Reborn, 2 Salvage. The traps, you have 2 Call of the Haunted, 2 Safe Zone, Solemn Judgment, 2 Torrential Tribute, and 2 Trap Stun. Again, with that card being able to just Jinzo your opponent's trap cards, absolutely insane. For the extra deck, the extra deck was kind of an interesting one. The name of that deck was the Absolute Ice Wall, was the name of it. The extra deck for this one in particular, it consisted of 1 copy of Doloran and 1 Gungnir. You can also add, Brio and also what else? Trishula and a bunch of other water monsters. Maybe Boral Sword, would be another one. Another extra deck that list of extra deck cards that they can use. You could use Bahamut Shark, Blade Armor Ninja, Daigosto, Emerald, Evil Swarm Ouroboros, Utopia, Snow Dust Giant, Shark Drake. Shark Drake would be another one. Just to give you guys an idea of what the extra deck was about. Now, as far as the weakness of the archetype, they thrived on having because they thrived on having multiple monsters on the field, which was an easy way of dealing with not letting them have a decent board, there were so many cards. There were a good amount of cards that you could use to break those boards. One would be obviously like the three main cards that they could use would be Regeki Dark Hole and also Torrential Tribute, because they were weak against effect negation. Cards like Skill Drain and also Brotherhood of the Fire Fist Tiger King would be two cards that could also work. Vanity's Emptiness, Arcalor Chrysia, and also Fossil Dyna would stop you from special summoning Ice Barrier monsters, whether they were from the deck, the graveyard, the hand, or even in the extra deck as well. And then because that you had a bunch of spells in the archetype, one of the most notable cards that can stop spells, Imperial Order, hands down. Yes, it does focus on your spells as well, but you mainly want to try and use it for your opponent's spells. So that could come a long way. And then because that the archetype was mostly around defending against attacks, and it had little to nothing against burn decks. Chain Burn or Trick Stars could just burn your opponent directly. So as far as whether or not the deck was meta, I don't recall if it was or not, because I remember let me take a look, because I think it was. There were a couple of there were a couple decks that actually attended a couple of YCS events, if I remember correctly. I don't recall if they did or not, but I would say, but I believe it was just to name one of them, YCS Providence was actually not too long. I believe that was back in 2011. Yeah. The top 32 deck list. There was one that had Ice Barrier. So YCS Providence, this was back in 2011. To give you guys some of the different decks that were a part of that topped that one. You had decks like Tengu Synchro, Infernities, which was a pretty broken deck back in the day. Frog Monarch, which was a pretty absurd deck. Six Sams was another one. Herald / Hyperion. Chaos Synchro. So let's see what else. Machina Gadget. Banishing Banishing deck. Okay. Water Tengu. X-Saber, Gravekeeper, Tengu Synchro, Six Sams. Yeah, so it was mostly that, but I think Ice Barrier also made its appearance in this event back in 2011. So I would say yes, it was meta, but I don't think it got very far. As far as whether or not the deck would be meta in today's standards, I would say yes, given the right additional support. I could definitely see Ice Barriers becoming super meta. And if you guys are wondering if I'm going to be building any of these decks, I do have plans of it, but I don't know if I will or not. Just because a lot of these decks had so many different just because a lot of these decks didn't really like go far. as far as the meta, but to give you guys an idea of some of the Ice Barrier cards that were in the archetype, you had Blizz, Defender of the Ice Barrier, Chiromancer, Defender of the Ice Barrier, Dark of the Ice Barrier, Prior of the Ice Barrier, Secret Guards of the Ice Barrier, DeLorean, Freezing Chains of the Ice Barrier, Gungnir, Trishula Zero, which I believe that was the new one that just dropped from that dropped in the Freezing Chain Structured Egg, Numbing Grub of the Ice Barrier, Magic Triangle of the Ice Barrier, Medallion, Terror of Trishula, one of the newer ones, Brionac, Hexa Spirit, Geomancer. So yeah, you just naming off some of them: Pilgrim of the Ice Barrier, Royal Knight of the Ice Barrier, Samurai of the Ice Barrier, Zujin of the Ice Barrier, and then the only zombie in the archetype, Sacred Spirit of the Ice Barrier. So again, was the deck really meta? It was more. I believe this was more of a tier 2 deck. So like kind of like a rogue deck of sorts. Because again, it's as I said, the archetype didn't like excel when the first Hidden Arsenal set came out. But once we got into sets, some of the newer sets over time, then the deck started to really excel, and it ended up. I think it topped a couple of YCSs. I think it also topped a regional as well. I could be wrong. You guys can comment below if I'm wrong. But again, was the deck meta? Yes, it was. It was more of a rogue deck. Will it be meta today? It's hard to say. It's hard to say whether or not it'll be meta once we're able to have. Once we're able to go to events in person rather than just be a part of the remote duels, because I know that at the time that I'm recording this right now, which is actually the same day that I'm going to be posting it, which is Friday, May 28th, this year's World has been canceled because of the pandemic, of course. I believe we're supposed to have. The first event we're supposed to have, I think we're going to be having it in... I don't remember... Let's see. I actually want to see about something really quick. I think... I think we're supposed to... I think our first event post Worlds, I believe... okay, yeah. So pretty much everything is a remote duel because of the pandemic. But the next event we're gonna have is actually tomorrow, which is the Lightning Overdrive pre-release. But as far as like competitive play goes, we have next month in June we have the Remote Duel Invitational, which I believe will be in North America only, and info will be coming soon. I don't know if we're ever gonna have in-person events, but only time will tell. But yes, again, the Ice Barrier archetype, hella crazy. Again, being able to just spam the board with a bunch of monsters, protect one another from effects and whatnot, and being able to slowly control the field, control the match. It was pretty good. It was pretty good. But guys, that is gonna do it for this video, for this episode of Yu-Gi-Oh's Biggest Issue. Let me know in the comments below your thoughts on the Ice Barrier archetype, and also comment below if you guys think it'll be meta once we're able to have in-person events once again. But again, that will do it for this video. Hopefully you guys enjoyed. If you did, Make sure you guys smash that thumbs up button if you guys are new to the channel. You guys want more episodes of Yu-Gi-Oh's Biggest Issue, which gets posted every Friday. Make sure you guys subscribe to the channel and hit that notification bell so you guys don't miss out on any new content that comes your way. And be sure to follow me on Twitter and Instagram. All the links will be down in the description. And if you guys have fan mail that you want to send me and want me to open up on the channel, my address will also be in the description as well. And on that, this is your boy Nash, signing out.